Hello there, Jeff with the Bennington Elkhorn Valley Railroad. Just got this Wifitrax WFD-31 NCE cab bus Wi-Fi interface. I got this actually on eBay. It's new. It cost about $120, which as a Wi-Fi solution is quite a bit cheaper than what I'd seen from elsewhere, including NCE. So going to take a look at this, hook it up. The idea is it would actually hook directly in as a direct replacement for the board that's behind the panel that comes with the NCE Powercab starter kit. So going to take a look at that and see how that works. Let's see. A lot to the packaging here. Appears to somewhat be an anti-static bag. There's a note on the outside says Powercab users must have version 1.65B. Power Pro users must have version 2007C. So I've got a relatively new Powercab unit, so I don't know exactly what version I have, but I'm pretty sure I've got a new enough version that should work with it. Here's the board. As you can see, it's got, this is the front end of the board. It's got your Powercab and your other throttle inputs with a light, and then the same outputs on this side for running your power and whatnot. So I'm going to swap out my existing panel for this one, and we'll see what happens. The idea, I guess, is it should work not only with your Powercab controller plugged in there, but it's actually will act as a Wi-Fi access point that you should be able to connect to and use applications running on an Android or iPhone. I use Android to actually control the locomotives and accessories and stuff. So I'll try swapping it in there, and we'll come back and see how it works. So I'm going to pull out my panel here. These silly wood screws I use, I'm going to replace those as well. Some normal screws, because these are kind of silly. Panel. So these are my wires to my bus, which I will need a much smaller screwdriver to take out. It helps to have the right tool. So there is the original. I'm going to extract the board off. board. New board. I can already see there's probably going to be a problem here because I use this massive 2x4 and I'm going to have to cut a bigger opening to accommodate the larger board. I'll probably go off camera to do that. Oh, and look at that. Their display is a little bigger too. I'm going to have to drill that out a little. I'll do these things off camera and come back. Sometimes you just need to bring the heavy equipment into a project like this. Hopefully I won't shake everything. Beautiful. So I'm having to drill a little bit bigger hole for the power light. There we go. I'm getting it lined up. Kind of wondering if these are the right size screws too. Surely they would accommodate the same screws. So I eventually figured out that it actually came with its own screws. I didn't notice, and a little bit smaller, so I was able to get the panel attached. I did have to actually open up my hole here a little more to get the slightly larger board in there. And there we go. I really hated these wood screws that I kind of did. I probably mentioned before, but my layout's built with 2x4s. And, kind of reason being, I had done a fence project recently. I had a lot of spare 2x4s around, so that's why I used 2x4s by bench work. And I also had a lot of wood screws. So probably a better idea, I think I'm going to replace those wood screws just because it looks a little better too. With these ones here. I think I got smaller ones than those. Not quite that big. Not sure it's any smaller. A little better than the exterior decking screws. So there is the panel reinstalled, and as it happens, I didn't really pay attention, but there's just barely enough clearance through my 2x4 for the bus wires to go in. Question is there enough length? Because it's now on the side instead of the back. Looks like there might be. So I've got the panel installed with the Wifitrax board in it. What's a little different I've just noticed is, and maybe this is true in other versions of the NCE, but in my particular unit, I never saw a light on until I actually plugged in the Powercab. In this situation, I've got the red light there. I plug in the Powercab. It's working, which is good to see. At least the unit's coming on. And then it goes to the different color, kind of colorblind. Looks like a white light there. My engines have come up. Looks like I can pull one up here. And it looks like they are working. So far it looks like the existing functionality is working. Got engines running at full control. But yeah, it's interesting because I usually keep my NCE system always plugged in, and then it's only the Powercab controller that I disconnect when I'm done with a session. But in this case, if I am to stop a session and I unplug, then it goes back to the red there, which I guess that's fine. Maybe that's the way, that's the way the original board is supposed to be working, and it just wasn't working that way for me. I mean, it makes sense that I've got power going to the board, that maybe there should be some light. But in this case, I plug in the controller, and it eventually goes to the other color there. So, interesting. On to Wi-Fi. Now we'll have to figure out if we can see it from the phone, which, since I'm using that as a camera, I'll have to go offline here and maybe I'll do some screen captures to show you what that looks like. I'll be back. So I actually ended up finding something better than a cell phone, I think, hopefully. I found my wife's Chromebook, which runs on Android, so I actually was going to install, so I just searched for DCC Train inside of the Play Store, and there's Engine Driver Throttle, which is a very popular one, I know. Just going to install that. And we'll open. Welcome to Engine Driver. Got an arrow to continue on. See, it's telling me I need some permissions. We'll go ahead and allow that. Not sure what all these permissions are for. Manage photos, really, I'm not sure what that's for. You can add photos of your engines. It wants permissions to change screen brightness. I don't know why. We're going to skip that. Name for the device. It's my wife's laptop, although maybe I'll commandeer it if this works as well as it looks like it could. We'll call it Ronnie's laptop. It wants kind of look and feel stuff, different themes. I'm just going to skip past these. So it's now ready to connect. Now my guess is it's going to need the Wi-Fi for Wi-Fi tracks Wi-Fi. So before I continue on, I just pulled up the system tray here. I'm currently connected to my home Wi-Fi. I'm going to go looked, and there's a Wi-Fi tracks WFD-31. Obviously, is the one that's broadcasting from the Wi-Fi tracks board. It's connected to that. So I'm going to come back here and click the checkbox, and it's giving me a connect to server display here. And it does have a server down below there, which I clicked on, which it looks like it's actually connected to something now. So now I have a actual, I actually have a representation of a throttle here, and I can go in and select a locomotive. It's got DCC address, server roster, some of the default channels, I guess, recent locos. Okay, from an earlier session you caught me. It's got a couple of my locomotives in here. So anyway, from DCC address here, you know, kind of like your Powercab, you just put in an address. So I've got 2570 on the layout. I'll just put in that address and click on this acquire here, and here's my throttle with the slider and some basic light, bell, horn functions. I've got 2570 behind me, so I'm going to click on the light, and sure enough, there's a light on 2570. I'll just click on the bell, and by golly, we got a bell too. See, I'll turn on the ditch lights here, which is through function 6. There's the ditch lights. Cool. So now I'm going to click on the slider and give it a little throttle. And here it goes. We've got some movement here. So first test here looks to be working. Kind of exciting using Wi-Fi.